Hey, welcome everybody. We are back for another show. Your pals, Jason and Keith. This show is a joke. It's a JK. It's been a busy day.
For you, yeah.
What have you been doing?
Working from home.
Right.
Today was a day that I didn't have a lot to do.
Okay.
Now, the last couple of days, I've been working my little skinny butt off. Writing stories, getting things like that done. And it's, of course, everything takes, 3 or 4 times the amount of time it normally would, because you have to email back and forth. Is this okay? What about this? That kind of thing. And today was kind of an off day. And I'm not complaining.
An off day that was 72 degrees. I mean, seriously, we could not have. I think I would have shot like 68 today had we gone out.
Speaking of the golf course and getting exercise and things like that, I had this idea.
All right.
And
I like ideas.
The golf course is closed.
Yes.
We lament that fact a lot.
Right.
But I'm wondering if I would get in trouble if I just parked my car in the golf course parking lot and staying on the cart paths, if you will.
Yeah.
Just walked the course. No clubs, no golf balls or anything like that. If I would get in trouble, if the MPs would come and say, you are in a restricted area, you can't walk around here. If I'm just enjoying nature out there, walking the golf course.
Right.
What do you think?
See, we talked about this. It's just you, dear listeners. He and I did speak about this a little bit. And I said, I think you should give it a shot. I think, I bet there's probably still somebody on there. Even if it's a groundskeeper or someone just attending the counter behind the counter at maybe not, I don't know, but I don't see the harm that could be done, although I could see why they wouldn't want people running roughshod, over the fairways and some other things, you know what I mean? But if you say, hey, I'm going to walk around the cart path or whatever, right? Why is that? I don't see a problem with that. I mean, that could be fine, but it's the federal government.
Totally respectful. I'm not going to set the flag. I don't even know if the flags are still out there. Set the flags upside down in the holes or anything like that. Just walk and enjoy nature and count the steps. Okay, from here I could hit an 8-iron. Whatever.
These are the things. These are the things we think about when we have time on our hands, right? When we're like, I need another fucking thing to do. So what am I going to do? And today it's been. Actually, I've had more work than I expected. Right. So I had. The one video to produce, which I forgot has to be done twice because we want one to be on Big Europe TV, which we haven't had any success with yet, but we'll get there. And then the other one we want to put on Facebook. But then I thought, I can make this into a radio report pretty quickly, so I did that. But the problem was my video editor was totally screwing up this morning, and it had to do with a video processor editor thing. And then on top of all that, you wanted to hear about the lunchtime thing.
Yes.
So, of course, my wife and daughter are on spring break, and I haven't been spending enough time with them. I need to get done here, and I think I might even take like a half day off on Friday so I can at least spend some time, maybe even tomorrow. And so we're like, all right, let's get out of the house. And I was literally I was between hangry and like getting ready to punch my TV, which would have been bad because I've already ruined one TV with it falling off of a mount. And I had to go get another one to serve as my computer monitor. So I was like, I can't punch the screen. But thankfully, Dee Dee texts me and says, hey, are you ready to go? And that was like the thing that decompressed me. I was like, so I was like, all right, cool. So anyway, we were going to go try the fried chicken place that's on Pariserstrasse. It's called Nick's Fried Chicken. I think you've probably passed by it once or twice. But it looks really good, and so I said, hey, let's go try that at least, and if it's great, it's great, and if it sucks, we don't go back, right? So I was excited. We all got in the car, but the mood was we were all hangry. Apparently, we all wanted to eat, right? So the goal was
when the whole family's hangry,
right? So we were gonna.
Nobody to keep the calm.
No, there's no hangry referee. It's just, because usually, like, I'll get the hangriest and Dee Dee will go, calm the fuck down. It'll be fine. We'll get something, and it's all good. It all eventually works over. But the three of us, I think, were hangry in the car. So we figured what we would do is run in, get food, and then as we ate the food in the car, as you do now, or, go picnic somewhere, I guess, whatever, we had to make a couple of stops. One of the stops was to drop off some clothes we were no longer needed to a church. And then the other stop was we were going to hit the Tomb hardware store to get some planters. We need these heavy planters out in the backyard because our plants keep getting knocked over by stupid cats. And the planters they're in are just they're too lightweight, right? They're not sturdy. They're not good enough to kind of hold the plants. Right. So it was a good plan. But as I'm famed to saying, and as quoting the Mike Tyson quote as often as I do, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So we go down to Pariserstrasse, or we get off on Einsiedlerhof, take that left, and Nick's Fried Chicken is right there. I'm very excited. Pull up, closed. So now the hangry amplification is suddenly taking on sort of Norse god, biblical Viking proportions here. So now we're all like, okay, we need to eat or we're going to kill each other. So we sort of settled on McDonald's because it was close and we're hungry. But Dee Dee and I didn't want to go, but Annabelle was like, could we please? And fine, whatever. So we went to McDonald's, right? So we get to McDonald's, and so a couple of things happened that were kind of weird. So the line was already like two or three cars deep behind the ordering kiosk. So that meant I think it was like 4 cars up to the window. So it was deep. And then it was moving slowly. So that was sort of acceptable until one car just, we sat there for like 10 minutes. And then when we finally got our order, we moved up slightly. And then some guy behind us gets out of his truck, walks around us up to the drive-through window, and proceeds to have this really weird long argument with whoever the window was. And I think what it was is that you can order McDonald's online before you get there, and then bring your phone up, like you would drive up to the drive-thru, right? And you'd show them your phone, and then they'd hit it with a scanner. They scan the Q code or whatever it is. You're paid. They hand you your salty, awful badness, and then you drive off. Well, I think something happened to this guy's order, like the app screwed up, or what I think happened is that he entered it all in and paid, but it didn't give him the Q code. So he's little redheaded guy. He looked like Ed Sheeran. Who's the singer?
Sheeran.
Thank you, Ed Sheeran. He looked like Ed Sheeran. No shit. He was kind of had this gingerish mop of hair, and he was kind of, just kind of Ed Sheeran looking, right? So, but he's in his little work overalls and boom, 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 and rumbles up to the window, and he's like, and so I'm watching it. And I'm like, okay, so he's holding up all the traffic so he can negotiate whatever's happening. And it was about 5 minutes in when I finally figured out something's gone wrong with this app and this Q code. But then he starts getting, kind of vociferous about it. He's becoming much more animated about it. And I thought that was interesting because not an American. It was a local national. So he was getting much more animated about it. And then eventually it stops. And this is probably 10 or 15 minutes. No shit. And he finally stops and goes back to his van. And then right after that, it was kind of like boom, boom, boom. So then the car in front of us gets up to the window. And I think what he ordered was not on the McDonald's menu because they either had to go out of the building and go to another restaurant to get it for him, or they had brought the cow into McDonald's, killed it, and were grinding the beef and getting the cheese out of it in order to make whatever fucking burger he ordered. Because whatever he ordered, it was rare, right? It was like, oh, you'll have the Kobe beef burger. All right, well, one of our representatives will fly to Japan and get them beef, and we'll be back in 6 hours. I mean, just this one guy. And I don't know what he ordered, but he only got one bag. And you know how it is when you're sitting back there and you want the satisfaction of sort of like, what did this, I don't want to say motherfucker, but what did he order that's taking 95 hours? And it was one bag. And it didn't even look like a full bag. It was just like looked like 3/4 folded over bag. And I'm like, if all that is like a Big Mac and some fries, that dude's car should catch on fire on the way out. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I'm not wishing him any harm, but his car should catch fire, and he should have to call a mechanic and pay a lot of money. Because if he wasted our time for like an ordinary meal, that's going to suck. So anyway, we finally get our meal. It sucks. So now we're not hangry. We're just, dejected because we had to eat this McDonald's food, and it sucked. And, you know, now we're full of this crap and we don't want to eat anymore. So now we've got to wait so we can get some nutritious stuff. We go over to Rob, get our mail. That's fine. Thank God for postal workers. You know, that was part of my task today. Mm-hmm. And then went over to Tomb. Now, if you've never been to Tomb, it is a German hardware store. It's like Home Depot in a lot of ways, right? Well, so Dee Dee wanted to get a couple of these planners, so we figured we would bop in, get a couple of planners, and bop out. Well, it turns out that Tomb is regulating the number of people in the store, and we didn't know that. So when we walked up to the door, there's a long, well-spaced line of people waiting to get into the store. And Dee Dee's like, nope, we ain't doing that. So the good part was we got to go to Kaufland, which I recommend if you have not been, Keith. It's just outside of Lonsdale, and it's kind of a Walmart-y grocery / department store, but mostly grocery, but some like DVD and computer software and stationery and stuff like that. So it's kind of got the same stuff as Globus, but on a smaller scale. I was interested in going there because they were offering some interesting Star Wars toys and things for a while, but they didn't seem to have them. I wanted to pick them up for my friend Mike and my friend Steve at Rancho Obi-Wan, but I didn't get a chance to do that. So anyway, that was worth it. But then we picked out a few things and we were getting happier. And then we saw the line at Kaufland and to get out, and we were like back to hangry. It was like, are you kidding me? And it was huge. So again, people out doing things just like we are, and it was frustrating. And we ended up just kind of coming home, and I got right back to work. I fixed the computer problem, and here we are. So that's that. That was it, man.
So did you get the guy's license plate number?
No, I should have.
You should have, because we could hunt him. I know people.
The police.
Actually, I don't know. I don't know anybody here.
You don't know
Germany,
anybody
actually.
here. What are you talking about?
I know people in the States that would hunt him.
The Polizei's right across the highway, though, and they land helicopters there. Maybe we could have got them to hunt them down, in the helicopter and stuff.
Did you not go to Obi?
Did not go to Obi. Obi is, I suppose we could have, but we hadn't tried Tomb yet. And so people had said, oh, you got to go to Tomb. It's got good stuff. And, and of course, now that spring has sprung, I think officially, I think this is the second or third 70-degree day we've had. So we're definitely in the thick of it now. Everybody's doing gardening. Everybody's doing yard, outdoor, yada, yada, yada. So they were piling on there. There was no question that that's what they were there for. And I think if Tomb hadn't been limiting the number of people going to the store, it wouldn't have been that big a deal. But I think that line went 12 or 13 deep. So imagine all of those 12 people spaced out by 2 meters, or I think that's what they said their sign says, 2 meters. And you can imagine how far back it goes. So it wasn't, in the mental state that we were all carrying around, 'twas not worth it one iota.
I completely understand. I got out about an hour ago, enjoyed the sunshine, talked to my neighbor, keeping our distance, obviously. But
did you have to shout?
Say again?
Did you have to shout?
No. We both have voices that carry.
Let it all out.
Exactly. And he's a German, and he and his family made sure they were all okay. He made sure I was okay.
That's nice.
We talked about lawns and airplanes, and he grew up just right next door in Ramstein, in the village of Ramstein, and it was nice to have some human interaction, because except for this, where I can look at you on the video screen,
right, and
through email and Facebook Messenger, I have not had any, and phone calls. I have had some phone calls. Any human face-to-face interaction, even 6 feet apart, since March 30. Is it 31 or 30 days in March? The end of March.
34 days. Just what you said. There's 34 days in March, Keith.
I did not say 30.
It sounded like you said 34.
I said 30 or 31.
All right. That's fair. Must have just been my headphones then.
We'll say that, yes. So 2 weeks, a week ago yesterday, so I'm going on 8 days, and I know there have been a lot of people with more than 8 days of confinement and teleworking and all that, but oh my God, I'm craving human interaction. So it was nice to get out and talk to the neighbor. He was a nice, he's a nice guy, great family, willing to help with anything. So it was nice to get out. Speaking of separation.
All right.
Do we bring up the subject? Because now it's hitting the U.S. Even in the place where I moved here from, do we talk about masks?
Yeah, let's talk. We can talk about masks all day now. Yeah. So my mask today, because I did have to go on Rob, and I wasn't sure how militant people were going to be.
Hold up right there, just so you know, for those listening, like Ray Pollock and her husband PJ and my parents, Rob is Rhind Ordnance Barracks. That's where the garrison headquarters is and where our office is. So when we say Rob, we're actually talking about a small Army installation. So you had to go on Rob.
But it's not small. It's bigger than Ramstein, actually, in total square area. That'll throw you off. It's a huge installation, but our area of it is pretty small. But it's massive.
The concrete part is very small.
the place where the majority of the population gathers, on the south side of the highway, it's small, but on the north side of the highway, it's actually if I remember Stefan saying this, and I remember looking at it, there's actually more landmass than Ramstein Air Base. So it's a big post because ordnance. So yeah. So let's talk about masks, and none of us are thrilled to be wearing them around the Tudor home, but that's the way it goes. And so Dee Dee had a sort of nice fashionable scarf, gave one of those to Annabelle, and I just said, well, screw it, I'm going to use a T-shirt. So I had a Y&T. In fact, I still have it on my desk, I think here. Do I?
Y&T, really?
I have a Y&T T-shirt, one that I ordered maybe 6 months ago. From dhgate.com, which is this sort of Chinese reseller. But it was the only one, for whatever reason, they had this graphic. No one else did, but it's the Mean Streak album cover with the metal cobra and the jumper cables for the tongue. It's an awesome heavy metal 80s graphic, and their logo is big and gold, and it's awesome. But unfortunately, it looks like when I got it, it was one of those iron-ons that like you buy in the store and then you print it out on your inkjet printer and then you slap it on the shirt and you iron it and then you pull that off and that's what you get. Well, that's what I got is basically that. So I was like, well, that's cool. It is what it is, right? So, but then I washed it like twice and now it fits my cat. So it's small. It's a little small. And I've gotten fatter, so that's no good. So I basically
hold it up so I can see it.
Oh, can you? All right, so this is it.
I can see you. Yes, yeah. I can't see me, but I can see you.
So there's that. So you see the cobra.
Oh, the jumper cables for the tongue. Yeah, nice.
All the time, every day of the week, still the house ain't big enough. So there's the back.
Okay.
Right. So what I did essentially is, and I'll show you, and I'll guide our listeners, is I slid my head through the head hole like this. Can I do it over the headphones? I can, like that. And that's it. That's basically what I wore around. I look like a half-dressed guy who walked out of the gym and forgot to pull his shirt all the way down. But we don't have masks, and we don't have a sewing kit. We've ordered some masks. We'll get those, and it'll be fine. But for now, this was I have two scarves. I have one for my favorite German football team, 1860, and then I have this other scarf that I've had since I lived in Portugal, which is I'm not even sure why I keep it. I think it's a World Cup type scarf. But this was it otherwise. So, the only thing you have to do is just lift the front of the T-shirt over your face, and, that's it. So, but I wore this around my neck the whole time we were out. Hang on a second. I got to pull it off my head now and pull the headphones off. And it was fine. And, but so I didn't go in and check the mail. Dee Dee did. She only said a few people were wearing masks at the time. I wonder have you been to the BX or the shop at, how militant they're being about that?
I went in yesterday, which would have been like the first day should have been in effect.
Okay.
For Ramstein, and I'd say about 2/3 of the people were wearing masks. None of the cashiers. I take that back. One of the cashiers was wearing a mask. So now I saw on one of the social media pages in the area that they had a sign up now that said you must have a mask on or a covering on to come in the facility.
Right.
My mask escapade went something like this. I don't have a mask. I don't have any mask.
Right.
And I had to go to the BX. I can't remember why now, but I had to go to the BX. So I didn't know if they would let me in or not. Turns out they would have, but remember we had an email that showed how to make a T-shirt mask.
Right.
Which
I didn't remember. That's why I just
scissors and
yeah. I just threw a T-shirt over my head, so I didn't remember that email at all.
I purged, much like my ball caps. I purged a lot of my T-shirts when I came here.
Right.
When I got ready to come here.
Right.
I love my T-shirts.
Yeah.
They all mean something.
I do too. In fact, Dee had gone up to the attic to exchange winter for summer clothes, and I forgot that I had stored a bunch of my T-shirts up there, and there were some that I don't want, but there were a few I was like, oh yeah, we're not getting rid of that. I want that one for sure. When
I go back to Lawton, I'll see my T-shirts around town because I donated a lot of them to Goodwill.
Right.
So which one do I use? Well, I finally picked one. And I thought, okay, well, I can make this cool because it has the red, white, and blue stripes of the Air Force on it, that kind of thing. Well, so that's what I took to the BX. Okay. But I walked in and said, well, shit, nobody else is wearing one.
Yeah.
Really? So I kept it in my pocket. And I went to clothing sales and looked for some kind of mask. But, of course, they're all sold out. So I ended up getting a balaclava. How do you say that?
Balaclava.
Many
people since this started have said baklava, and I would love some baklava, but that is not what that is actually.
That's Turkish food, right?
A Turkish or Greek honey-based yummy dessert. Yes, so that is definitely what baklava is. So
I bought a...
But a balaclava is the thing that GSG-9 and SEALs and Delta Force wear when they go in and storm a building.
So I'm ready for that.
You are. You're totally ready. Just with the mask alone, you are good to go.
That's right. And, of course, as the weather heats up now, because it's absolutely beautiful outside, I'm going to sweat a lot among the head and above the shoulders because that is a warm piece of clothing. But it works. You can pull it up over your mouth and your nose like you're supposed to. So I get home, try this thing on, and I'm trying it in my unused bathroom that I never use downstairs, right?
All right.
Because it's not anointed like the one upstairs that has all the stuff in it.
Okay.
So I'm down there, and I noticed this small box of like 10, not surgical masks, but medical masks.
Okay.
And I thought, where the hell did that come from? And then I remembered I was supposed to have a visitor late last month, and she's a germaphobe. Mm-hmm. And I bought those for her because we were just hearing about this thing called coronavirus that was happening in China.
Still making beer jokes about it probably, too.
Yes.
Yeah, corona.
And so I said, hey, I'll get this little box of medical masks for her because that'll make her feel better as we travel around Europe and Paris which is still Europe, but right. Go around to different places and she'll feel better. So I went out. I not only carved up a T-shirt, I not only spent $15 for a balaclava, but I had these things sitting there the whole time. Welcome to my life.
Well, you know what? Better over-prepared than under-prepared, right? I mean, better that than something, Look, we can talk about the mask thing, and we should. So the mask thing went into implementation probably. Again, just before we start this, these are our personal opinions. These are not comments on policy Absolutely. Or whatever. These are just personal vantage points. So let's be clear about that. All right, that said, so this thing sort of came down, Sunday night? Sunday night or Monday night, I don't remember. And so we knew the DOD had a letter. It was up on many of the private groups well before we even got hold of it. But it was leading the way. So obviously a lot of people said, hey, look, they're telling us to wear masks. What should we do? Well, the Army works differently than the Air Force, works differently than the Navy, works differently than the Marines, works differently than the Coast Guard, works differently, I actually have to say this now, than the Space Force. So they all have different ways in which they implement the policy. It's on the individual departments to implement the policy that way, as I understand it. Anyway, so we were waiting for the Army to say, here's how you're going to do it. The Air Force, however, got ahead of that. or didn't get ahead of it. They worked quickly, I should say. So the first thing they said was, or their mask policy was, well, it has to match your uniform in these colors and these patterns, but also you have to wear a mask if you go into exchange, shop at, commissary, or other sorts of whatever public venues are left open. I think those are the big three, right? Am I wrong about that? I think those are the big three.
No, you're right. You're right.
Okay, so hang on a second. I gotta go into Divid's Direct here. So you're gonna listen to me work for a second, folks. Keith, sing something.
And the big thing is the little piece that got me. I totally understand wearing masks. I get it.
Right.
I'm not arguing that at all. What I'm arguing is being given an order and not being given the tools to do it.
Okay,
and I think that's what makes a lot of people upset. But they did give you directions, as I said before during my escapade, is how to make these with your own household appliances. And I get that they are keeping the masks, they are keeping the surgical, the N95 masks, the surgical mask for essential medical personnel. I have no problem with that.
But that's what they're for.
Yes.
If I can be blunt, that is what they're for. They're for medical personnel who are working around disease and emergent conditions, and that's what they're for. I mean, there's no other way to say that. If you're wearing an N95 mask and you are not a healthcare worker, then, for lack of a better phrase, you're doing it wrong. You're supposed to be wearing the other kind of mask, which is just only supposed to prevent your germs from escaping the general area of your face.
That's right. These masks, by the way, are not meant to protect you.
Right.
They're meant to protect you from infecting somebody else.
That's right.
You may not know you have the virus.
Right.
So, it's happening in the States, as I said, in Lawton, Oklahoma, where I moved here from. People are complaining the government is trying to get into our lives and this and that. But you have to flatten the curve. And I think most people understand that, but not everybody.
The regular listener Darren and I had a conversation yesterday over Facebook. And I always appreciate a good conversation with Darren because he's a smart guy. Yes. And he's talking about the perceived encroached liberties in Vermont. And I don't want to get too deep into this other than to say that Vermont did some things where they said to businesses like Walmart and Target or others, and actually they didn't say it to those two stores, so I got to be clear, only sell essential things. Don't sell non-essential things. If you're selling non-essential things, you are drawing people to your store in a way, and that is going to bring disease to the store, blah, 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 right? You get the point. So, but Darren and I were going back and forth. His argument was that it is a spoke of liberty and all those things, which I agree with to an extent, and I'll say why in a minute. And I was saying they're trying to prevent people from coming to the store. The thing that my argument hinges on is, and I think we've said this before on the show, and I hope we have, is these are extraordinary times. This is not.
We have said that.
This is not normal. If they were encroaching on liberties during a normal time, then yeah, I'd be all over it. Yeah, why are they restricting that? That's stupid. Why is government interfering with what business is in the free market? And I'm a believer to the free market to an extent that it should be regulated to a degree, blah, 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 whatever. The point was, he was saying that, they're making Vermont do this. And in this extraordinary time, they're trying to prevent disease, so they've asked for this measure. And it turned out that if you were a combination Pizza Hut and Taco Bell, that's an inside joke. If you were a combination supermarket, look it up, combination Pizza Hut and Taco Bell, it's a great song. If you were a supermarket that also sold, like a Target, that was like a super Target that sold stuff and food, that didn't apply to you. So any store that was like that, which basically means Target and Walmart, they weren't affected by that rule. But if you were another store that did that, I guess you were affected by that because you didn't sell the right stuff or whatever. So back to your point, which is I don't think it's an overreach to ask people to wear a mask. Now your point was, yeah, but I'm not supplied the mask. Okay, we can debate that one for a while. I don't agree that you have to be supplied with a mask. The problem is you can't just go to the store and buy a mask right now. They out. So that means in some ways you might have to, as you did and I did, hey, there's an old T-shirt. What can I do with that, right? You got to destroy something in your home to create something new, that kind of thing. I don't know. Again, I'm one of those people who operates in concentric circles. I first focus on me and my family, and then I work out to my closest friends, and then I work out from there. And at some point you just run out of energy and altitude, right? Or what's that saying? You run out of schlitz. And so, I need to focus on my family and taking care of them. And I trust the people who are leading with us, and I trust the people I work with. So I listen to them and do the things that they ask me to do, and it's kept me alive for a very long time. I really try not to get caught up in a lot of the discussion rhetoric or otherwise that's happening. There's a certain department head who said some things about a certain commander who is no longer a department head that we cannot discuss, and that is fascinating to me. That said, I'm a big believer that it's there's a certain level of trust that has to go to it. I am inherently distrustful of government, and I was telling somebody the other day, I am, my respect for authority, that dates back a long time to when I was a young airman, in that, I never met a first sergeant that I couldn't challenge. So I think it's important to sort of, have both eyes, to have that inherent distrust of government, to question, to be skeptical. But on the other hand, here is perhaps the most lethal flu we've seen in 150 years that they don't have a vaccination for yet, that's killing people in large amounts. And they've asked us to do some things that are not necessarily a strain on us, a strain on many. There is a strain on some, and I'm babbling. It's your turn to pick it up now.
They are, from what I'm reading from friends' posts in Oklahoma, they are telling the Walmarts, the Targets, you can sell food, essentials, but they're roping off the areas that have clothing and things like that in it to keep the shoppers out. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. No, I wholeheartedly agree with what you say. I was just a little salty that first day about, I have to wear a mask to go. I have to get a mask. I have to wear a mask to go in to get a mask. I don't have a mask. What am I going to do? So once I figured that out, I settled down a little bit, as I usually do.
Right.
And just go from there.
Yeah. And so, again, I think I'm intelligent enough to sort out the things that, like, okay, wearing a mask, I'm good with that. But as opposed to, you're going to have to hack off one leg in order to continue on. Like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna question that one a little bit. And that's that's an exaggeration, but it's not. So, I mean, again, it's, you have to just sort of look at the good and the bad. You have to look at the things that affect your family and do that. So, I mean, again, I don't know. The mask thing to me is just hang on a second, RC. I got to type something and say something. Kill some time.
Well, there's again, going back to what I'm reading on Facebook. There's some people that are apparently one of the regulations is that you still have to wear the mask when you're in your own vehicle.
Right.
I don't agree with that at all.
Right.
Now, so
now, see, I didn't get that. I thought the vehicle was you have to take it off when you're coming through the gate so they can see your face.
If asked, yes. Yes.
Right.
Now, yeah, I didn't wear mine yesterday, but I don't think I should be held up as the bastion of lawful authority either. But no, I don't wear mine in the mask or in the car because, frankly, it impedes my breathing, whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm sure going to wear it when I go out in public shopping, and there are times when I'm in an aisle, when we're all in the aisle looking for the hand sanitizer,
right.
that I'll be wearing my mask.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so that, the mask thing is different. It's probably the most visible, physical, intimate thing that we have now that says, hey, we are in this crisis. If you think about other crises of flus, think about that beaky-looking mask that looks like a gas mask. I mean, that thing
right.
was part of, I think, the Spanish flu. And, I mean, just, you can – there are degrees to all this. And I know these are our degrees of whatever we're doing here, right? So I think you just have to take a breath and approach it and say, what's best for me and my family? What's best for those in my concentric circles? And, wearing the mask is a thing that you got to do. So I'm going to do it. and I'll do it until I have to, until I not do. So, which I don't think will be that much longer.
When I get the chance to go anywhere outside the walls of my home,
right?
When I'm not working, you bet, yeah, I'll wear it too. It's just hard to take a breath with a mask on.
Yeah, but it's definitely different. I mean, I remember when you were a kid. Remember, you'd like go under the covers and you'd build that fort, and you'd be like, "Oh, it's so cool to be under the covers." Yes, and nobody could see me, and here's my little fort. But after a while,
when I was a kid,
when you're breathing in that little, only when you were a kid, not 3 nights ago at all. No, when the Pirate kicked in, no, not at all.
Yeah, well played, sir.
But you if you're under there for more than like 3 minutes, all of a sudden it's humid. It's there's your breath is stinking up your face, and I mean there's a lot happening there. So it only works for a while. And hey, when we had to wear gas masks in the military, I tolerated that like not at all. I was on one exercise, and they're like, mask, gas. Put on the mask, and then it's like 10 minutes later, and I'm just like, I just took it off. I needed to take a breath. I knew it was an exercise, but I mean, I understand the importance of it. I wouldn't have done it in real life, but it was Florida hot, and I needed to, take that off. So, hey, you're listening to This Show is a Joke. We are well into it. We usually say that a lot earlier, but we're like 40 minutes in. We've been talking about masks and bad fast food and great weather.
Oh, great weather. Should I walk around the golf course? That's the question.
That's the pending doom, right?
I think we've hit our 6 listeners, and you've got some. And I saw somebody mention when you posted the link that how have I not known about this before? And people seem to like this.
Like what? Wearing masks or the weather?
What we're doing here with this podcast.
It hasn't been. It's been really nice that we have connected with some folks, and I really enjoy that. And I think it's very cool that that some folks are kind of seeing what we're saying. I mean, we're doing a lot of sort of local inside baseball stuff in between, but I think our conversation is nice, and I think people can kind of latch onto that and kind of get a feel for it. And I think it does get some folks thinking, and I'm glad to have folks on board. They've been very nice about listening. Oh, I should check. You want to hear the numbers? Should I check the numbers right now?
Yeah, let's check the numbers. While you check the numbers, you mentioned reaching out to people, connecting with people. I had an interesting connection yesterday that a mutual friend of ours, a Facebook friend of mine, I think you know her personally, Julie Weckerline.
Oh, yeah.
Julie Weckerline has a 16-year-old daughter. Let me finish this sentence before you judge me. And of course, everybody's being homeschooled now. And she may be interested in pursuing journalism as a career.
Interesting.
Once she finishes school.
Right.
So Julie put out the call, said, "Hey, anybody fit this bill?" And I said, "Yeah, I've been in journalism all my life, from radio to print to TV,
right?
And now breaking into podcasting." And so I had an hour-long conversation with Claire Weckerline, who may be the first dual citizenship president of the United States.
Maybe.
If that's possible.
Yeah.
Is that legal? But anyway.
She's a smarty.
Just a very, very sharp young lady who asked some very good questions. And I got to talk about my favorite subject, which was me. And so it's it was great for a young person to be inquisitive, to actually want to know about life outside of a phone, that kind of thing. We talked about podcasts. We talk about one-man banding journalism, which is basically what you're doing now. And
I think that trend started about 10 years ago, and it's just because that's the the direction that you had to go as a professional, right? You had to adapt. So I'm sorry. Please finish your story. I could talk about that all day.
Right. That's exactly. Get out of my head, because that's exactly where I was going. You have to adapt. And what I mentioned to her was the young journalists I worked with as media relations at Fort Sill was they would come out not just to shoot their own video. Then they put the video camera down and had to use their phone to shoot something for Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, this is so-and-so, and coming up at 6, I'll have this. That'll go on the Facebook and the Instagram and the Twitter.
But I don't think these were skills that people didn't have inherently, especially in our day and age of, hey, let me take a selfie. Okay, you can shoot a photo of yourself, so that means you can turn it around and shoot a photo of a burning building. Or even better, you can make 3 thumb swipes to go back to video, turn that on, and get some video of the burning building. I think one of the trends. So I mean, Air Force recognized this probably back in 2005 or 4. I thought a few of us recognized it much earlier than that. In that some people were capable of doing radio, print, video, and all of those different things. Some, not all, but some. But many could be given the skills to do many of those things, semi-well. You could give everybody the foundations for all of those things. But I think what pushed us forward on a lot of that was exactly that there were folks, just ordinary folks. I keep saying folks like I'm some sort of folk singer. There were people out there who were they were at the scene and they had their phone up and they posted it to YouTube. Guess what? That's journalism. I mean, if they're not sitting there going, fuck, all the way through and ruining the video, then the video that they got is, reporting. It is, look, here's the building on fire. And you started to see more and more network television stations credit, whatever the user's name was from YouTube with the tanker explosion or whatever it was. So all of a sudden, having to have a journalist run out there and film it, or a camera person or a videographer or whatever, that became almost passé. And then I think as a profession, folks started waking up and going, wait a minute, I need to become more versatile. But the industry itself got swallowed up by the information age, print news, and all of these other things, save Washington Post, New York Times. And now, people are much more adaptive. They are I better write this 300 words and do a video clip and, be multimedia and be prepared to be in an interview and so on and so forth. So couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I again, something I've talked about for a long, long time, and that is, trying to have people who worked for me and trying to keep myself as, to use the baseball analogy, a 5-tool player. Being able to do radio, video, writing, being able to do a lot of the other things skillfully, because that's the skill set you need now in order to survive in an environment of social media. All right, you ready for the number of downloads?
Yes.
You're not going to like it. It's only 27, but total. Let's see. I can't give you total because I don't have it real handy right now. But the spikes are good. The graph itself is pretty from when we started to now, so it's consistent. And then the other thing that I've done is I've started distributing it on Reddit and a couple of other places. So. I think we are for what we're trying to do. I think it's good stuff. So, I like our podcast too. I like just sitting down and talking to you once every other day.
Just once every other day. So it's a good thing I'm on telework. Huh?
I think what you should do when you make a decision about the golf course, and if it's a positive decision, that you should go take your phone and just turn on the voice recorder and go, all right, I'm on hole number 1 right now. There's nobody out here. The fairway's really overgrown. They haven't mowed it in like a week, maybe like 2 weeks. But I've brought a 5-iron with me. Let me see if I can get out of here and get up on the green in 2. Here we go.
No, I'm going to be Flaherty.
Here's Pinnell.
That was a horrible swing. Everything moved but his bowels.
It's 9:30 at night. Pinnell, about 175 yards. He's got a 5-iron because that's the only club he bought. And he hits it, and he has no idea where it went because it's too dark to see the ball. All right, let's go to Flaherty on 6. It would just be fun if you did, you walked the course, you did something like that, and we could just turn that into part of the podcast. That would be fun. Or we could just use the whole thing and then break in and talk about it. That would be funny.
All right.
See, now you have a task. Now you have an adventure.
Great, thanks.
If adventure had a name, it would be Robert Powell.
Oh, we've got to explain that. Do we have time to explain that?
Should we do it now, or do you want to hold off on that one? We can do that one. I've been wanting to tell that story for a while.
Do we have time?
Yeah, we have plenty of time. We have all the time in the world. Yeah, we have plenty of time.
So there we are.
Jason
and I. We don't know each other real well.
No.
Because this is probably less than a month. We had to take this, what the Army calls Operational Security Course number 2, so an advanced course, just so we can post on Army social media.
And just for clarity, it's a sort of mind your PDQs type of course. don't do this, do this. If you do this, tell this person, those kinds of things. All right, go ahead.
Right. So the first day, it's a normal military institutionalized course, and we have these cards that you fold over and write your name on, and we sit in front of us, and Jason and I are sitting together, and eventually the instructor asks a question I know the answer to.
Right.
So I hold up my name, you can see him look down at the card, the placard, and it says, written in ballpoint pen, Mr. Pannell. Pannell.
And the letters are like an inch and a half high. You couldn't not see them.
Right. So naturally, Jason, he says,
all right, let's go to Mr. Powell. What do you think of that?
And I look at him. I look at Jason. Jason looks at me. I look down at the placard there, the name tag. I look back up at him and I go, it's Pannell. Mm-hmm. He goes, oh, I'm sorry, my eyes aren't what they used to be. Okay, so I answered the question. Of course, I got it right.
Yep.
But from then on,
well, I think he screwed it up. I think he screwed it up again, though.
Oh, he did.
I think he kicked it one more time. It's something. It wasn't Powell, and because that's what started me on the streak of calling you like 7 other names. Here's Mr. Petroselli, Keith Petroselli here with Mr. Yep. Pavlovsky is here with me today, but the one that stuck is Powell. So now whenever I see Keith. Not all the time, but if I want to get his attention, if it's like a slow, hey, Powell, what's going on, or something like that, or I haven't opened the show with that yet. I'm going to do that. I was all right.
But you have introduced me as Powell.
I have. I've done it I've done it on Facebook, and I've done it in person, and I've done it in email, which is even funnier and then people will call him Powell, and then he has to go like, no, that's a joke that Tudor and I have. I don't know why he continues to
stay out of our inside joke.
It's it's a pretty funny joke, but and we had nothing to do with
you.
We had nothing to do with it because that's the best part of it, and right. I give the guy some credit. Maybe he just misread it, but. Again, 1.5 inch letters, and it's given us something that will last us a lifetime. So I'll take that. Tomorrow's Thursday, so I'm trying to think. What have I got going on? So we still got to work out this thing about the chapel and trying to help them broadcast Easter services. So I got to do that. Mm-hmm. And but I can't think of much else Thursday. Yeah, I think it's going to be a quiet Thursday. Did I tell you? I think we talked about that. Will and Grace has been put back in place in like the 6 o'clock hour, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we did talk about that. But I just really haven't seen anything else.
I am recording old episodes of Psych.
All right.
I love Psych.
Oh, right, Psych. Yes, because somebody commented on that earlier.
Yeah.
Dee Dee, what was
Psych
the one? Oh, Dee Dee. So Dee Dee watched this one. I can't remember the name of it on Netflix. It was about a guy who lost his memory at age 18, and then his brother comes and finds him and tries to bring him back in the fold. And then and they're both English, but it turns out they were both. When the brother is holding back this huge, huge secret, and when he tells the secret, when Dee Dee told me, I was like, "Holy, are you kidding me?" She's like, "No, that's why you never wanted to tell him." And I don't want to tell it because it's a good special. Right. It's on Netflix, and I know people are bunkered in, so I don't want to be spoiler man. But
I saw her post on that. Do you remember the name? Because I don't off the top of my head.
I'll look for it now, but as I'll try to riff through it. But it was the subject matter's tough. That's maybe the biggest spoiler I can give. The subject matter is tough. But yeah, she said it was worth every bit of the. Oh, I want to know who I am. I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Oh, okay.
I seem to recall that. I'm scrolling through her. Tell me who I am. That's it. Tell me who I am. I'm trying to see. Tell me who I am. It's an hour and 25 minutes documentary. So here's the tease. After losing his memory in an accident, Alex Lewis trusts his twin brother Marcus to tell him about his past, only to discover he's hiding a dark secret about their childhood. And I will spoiler this part. It's the darkest secret. It's bad. Yeah, it's
oh boy.
It's tough. So, but it's a lot of the times when I don't watch something, Dee Dee tells me about it, and I always love to listen and get it through that way. But after she told me about it, I was like, okay, I probably need to take a look at that. So it'll be, I don't know when I'll watch it, but I'll watch it. So,
Okay. I'll have to check that out.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, can it be better than Tiger King though?
I Tiger King to me feels like a real flash in the pan. I mean, it is so outlandish and gregarious, and it's turned that cat into a huge celebrity. But it feels like it's had its 15 minutes. It's one of those things that's all sizzle and no steak. And I think I think that 15 minutes has passed. And that was sort of the thing when we all were told to hunker down and bunker in. That was the first thing we all discovered, and that was the conversation, right? Because it was so incredibly nuts that's what there was. But I think we're finally starting to move on to other things. And I think part of the interesting thing too is we all consume television is if you don't have a VPN over here, the Netflix you're getting is the German version with the English program that it has. And in the USA, they have some different things there. Dee Dee's been trying to make me figure out a way to pirate HGTV, so I'm trying to work on that.
I want
House Hunters.
And I know you watched a couple of episodes. I want to see The Mandalorian.
Right. Well, I have Disney Plus, and it's available, so you can come over to the house and watch it if you want, or I can give you my username and password. You can use it when I'm not watching it. It's worth it. I got 3 episodes in before Disney Plus decided not to let me watch it anymore here in Germany, but they started their German service on March 28th or something like that. So it's available. And I'm more than willing to let you watch it. The first 3 episodes were fantastic. The only thing that was kind of a drag, and a lot of people agreed, was they're only a half hour long, so they're not hour-long sorts of things. The series that I really got into, and again, I always caveat this with, and I've done a few podcasts, and whenever we get to talking about television, I'm the guy that just doesn't watch a lot of television. I just don't. But when I saw The Witcher, I thought 2 things. Okay, The Witcher's a cool property, and I'm kind of a fanboy for Henry Cavill. I like pretty much everything he's done so far. I liked him in Superman. I liked him in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. I understand he was also in the Showtime series that bears my last name, The Tudors. I didn't see that. But in general, I like everything he does. He's a good actor. So when they said he was going to be The Witcher, I'm like, all right, I'm in. I'll check it out. And I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. So that was literally the last series I watched, and I consumed all of that in like a day and a half. So I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to next season. Mandalorian, I think, is just as good, if not better. It's just that the episodes are only 30 minutes long, and that's kind of a drag. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, there's some shows on both Netflix and Prime that I like and have followed since their inceptions. But, I'm not a big Netflix watcher, believe it or not. Usually on a Friday night, I'll go to Prime and get a movie I haven't seen.
Right.
But other than that, there are some Netflix shows and Prime shows I watched that I really enjoy. Sex Education on Netflix is one. It's fantastic and it's funny. Happy, which is also it's a sci-fi network
I've heard
program.
Of it.
Starts Chris Maloney and Christopher Maloney and Patton Oswalt as a purple unicorn.
Patton is the best. What's the name of the show again? What's Maloney in? Because my wife is a big Maloney. Happy. All right. And that's
Happy
Netflix?
With an exclamation point. You did Netflix, yes. And there's 2 seasons.
All right.
I will say the first season was better, but yeah. I mean, it's just totally wow.
All right. I'll get her tuned into that for sure.
Let's see. But there's several I really like. We'll get into it one of these days.
And then the other thing that's been occupying my time, aside from work, is this baseball simulator I'm playing called Out of the Park 21, which will bore the tears out of anybody listening, so I'm not going to get deep into that. Other than to say, if you're bored and you want to hear me call a baseball game on Twitch at 9 o'clock at night or 3 p.m. in the afternoon, go find my feed, because that's what I'm doing.
So you are calling a baseball game?
I know. Is that nerdy? That is the worst nerdy ever. Yeah. So,
well, but you have my interest in that. And you've told me you make up names.
I do. You're in
for
it.
The players.
You're in it.
So are you? What are you watching a real game and you're just providing the commentary?
Right. So the sim itself, and see now we're talking about it. All right. So the sim itself is been heralded as the most thorough sports simulation ever created. Really, it's been used by actual baseball organizations as well as media outlets and others to sim the results of full seasons of Major League Baseball, to sim the results of series, and been pretty accurate. And so this game has been around for 21 years. I've owned it since Out of the Park 9. Every year I create something, when I started, I created something called the Pacific Coast Baseball League, which is now called the Pacific Coast Baseball Association. in my nerdy little heart, I always liked the sort of romance of the 40s, 50s baseball in California, Ted Williams, all that. So that always appealed to me. So I created this baseball league with 16 teams that come from various cities in California, along the coast and inland, including like El Centro, Redding, San Francisco, San Diego, which is my team, and then I also put a team in Tijuana. So I've simulated this team since season 9. The problem is the database is dumped like 3 times, including this year. When I switched from version 19 to 21, I wasn't aware that I couldn't upgrade my database from 19 to 21. And then in looking for the database to send to the nice people, because they were going to do it for me at the company, it turned out that it shit the bed, so I couldn't find it. So anyway, I had to start over. So when you start over,
term.
Right. So when you start over, I rebuilt the teams. I changed a couple of the city names because I wanted to update a little bit. And then essentially what I go do with my own team is I go in and I rename some folks. I rename, pitchers. I rename all the pitchers and batters to people I know or people of family members and things like that. And I just do it randomly. Aside from like one person I name as me, one person I name as Annabelle, but it's called AB Tudor. And then there's one for my wife. She's actually on a different team, and I might pump up their stats a little bit too. So that kind of keeps my interest in the game as well, a little bit more than it would. And the sim is so thorough. And now graphically, it's not on par with, say, a game that I have on my PlayStation called The Show, which is fun to play. But the simulation itself is fun to watch because you know that the number crunching that's going on behind the scenes is accurate as heck. So anyway, my idea this season was, I'm cooped up in the house and I don't have a heck of a lot to do. So what I'm going to do is, knowing on Twitch that there is a small but a rabid community of OOTP players, I'll go on there and I'll call my games. Now, I don't do this like others do. I do this because the game has a very big financial model and contracts and things like that. I'm not into any of that. I want to manage the baseball team to a winning season. That's what I want to do. I don't want to be the one spending money or telling how much hot dogs cost or worrying about filling seats. A lot of people do. I dig that
detail, huh?
I dig that, but you can turn that off and you could just do baseball strategy and trade and assign players. That's what I want to do. So that's what I do. So once I got my team set up, I got it through spring training. I figured out the injuries, and then I thought, all right, you know what? Once a night, I will do not once a night, but like once I take 1 or 2 nights off. But 4 nights a week, I will call one game, just for fun, and I'll do all the bits of it. And Tudor comes to the plate, kicks the dirt off his shoes, and here's the pitch, and so he throws the ball. And so I'll call that game, end it, and then I will simulate all the way through the series, if that's the start of the series, or I will simulate the next. So that usually I call the last game or the first game. So if it's the last game, I'll simulate the first 2 games of the next series and then go to that. And then I'll switch it up, and then I'll just go right to the next game, which is the first game of the next series. So just trying to vary it and have a little fun. Each call usually takes me about an hour and 30 minutes. I can set it up to go a lot faster, but I don't want to do that. So that's kind of one of my little nerdy little hobbies is I call baseball games for an hour and a half, and they're fun for me. And I've gotten probably at the most 8 viewers at one time, so that's kind of cool.
It's interesting, and I'll tell you this: I am not a NASCAR guy.
Yeah,
but I watched a lot of this past weekend's NASCAR, whatever it's called.
Oh, the iRacing stuff.
iRacing stuff, because the technology fascinates me.
The iRacing is pretty amazing. Go ahead. I'll let you tell your story, then I'll tell my little bit on iRacing.
Well, these are the names you're used to, like Jimmy Johnson and Dale Jr. and that kind of thing. But they're sitting wherever they're sitting in these incredibly expensive NASCAR car simulators. 3 screens around them with the gear shift and the headphones and all that. They're just not wearing a helmet. They're wearing jeans and a T-shirt, whatever. But when they go to the track, you cannot tell it's digital. You cannot tell it's not real.
Right.
It amazes me. So the whole and because it is digital like that, they have cameras in. The simulators may be in a garage, in a warehouse, in the racer's weight room, whatever, in the family room. Occasionally, a kid will walk in,
right.
and they can go there for a quick live interview while they're driving.
Yep.
And I'm not a NASCAR fan, but the technology fascinates me. I could not turn away.
It's pretty amazing. And so here's a little insight to your co-host. I was a sim racer for a very long time, from in the mid 1990s up until around maybe the early 2000s. And so there used to be games like IndyCar, and NASCAR was one, but I mostly did Formula One racing. There was a Micro Pros racing series, and there were some other things. And the way you would generally do that is you would race your race, and then some software had a ways of compiling all of that and putting it together, and then you would get your times and so on and so forth. It was quite interesting. So as the technology grew, you got into games like I think there's one called F1, which is strictly F1 series. There's the NASCAR game, and then online racing became much more popular, especially with NASCAR, because I think the NASCAR series was the first one to really get multiplayer racing right. So then once the bandwidth became available and once the processors became fast enough, the reality of actually doing this professionally came about. But I haven't touched sim racing in a very long time. So you and I talked a couple months ago when I started to get back into the flight sim, and I really made a conscious choice. Do I want to go back into flight? Do I want to do flight sim, or do I want to go back into sim racing? And for whatever reason, the flight sim appealed to me more. So when I saw iRacing, I was completely enamored of it, because I was like, oh man, this is something I could really get into. My challenge is that it's expensive. An annual fee is like $150. That's just it's very basic. And then you have to buy cars, and you buy liveries, or paint kits and all these other things. So it can become a very expensive very fast, and it's just electrons, right? It's not some sort of a physical thing that you can keep and do. So I couldn't feel it. Whereas when I got into the flight sim, I did. So what you're talking about, I have not intimate, but I love it too, and it is fascinating to me. And I would watch an iRacing race simulator. They use them iRacing at the NASCAR Museum in Charlotte. Annabelle and I got on those there. They're really modeled well. I mean, handling a NASCAR vehicle is challenging, and we couldn't even basically get it around for one lap because it felt so slippery and slidey, because you got to get it up to speed to get the aerodynamics and the whole thing. It's pretty amazing, but I'm a huge iRacing fan, and I've written about esports on my blog a few times, and how much I think esports is really shifting the paradigm of sports in general. The physical sports are obviously still popular, and people want to see it, and they want to see people kill each other in football and so on and so forth. But I think esports is really, really, really coming on, and I think this opportunity we've had to all stay home and not have any TV programming has brought esports to the fore, especially for games like, people who are playing Overwatch or Counter-Strike or things like that. Now sports simulations are becoming like, oh, yeah, these sports simulations are very realistic. Like NBA 2K, I think it's NBA, whatever it is, whatever version they're on, NBA 2K21 or whatever it is. Sim racing. If we get into football season, guess what else there's going to be a lot of simming. That race you're talking about that they showed, I think that aired here as well. They aired it on Fox 1. It got 1.1 million viewers. It was enough so that when they do the next one, they're going to air it on the actual network. That's a huge, big deal. So
it aired on AFN, and that's where I watched it. And just the thought that this iRacing, this simulated racing, is airing on the network, the Fox networks, and then AFN is picking it up.
Right.
Amazes me.
Isn't it?
And the whole, like I said, if you're watching this, if you've never seen one before, I'm watching. I had to figure it out at first because you see Jeff Gordon, who I've met, and
name drop.
I've actually interviewed him.
Name drop.
Yeah, thank you. If you can, I can.
He's short,
and he is that. And this was back when he was just getting started. But anyway, he's one of the announcers now because he retired.
He's pretty good.
There's another announcer, and they're in like this whatever, a room with a light on them and a microphone,
it's
right?
It's almost like a
They're
trailer, isn't it?
the same thing we are.
Yeah.
Say again?
They're in it's like a trailer almost, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so these guys are doing that, but when they go to the track shots and you see the cars going like you would, a year ago, you cannot tell that it's a video game for all intents and purposes. But I'll tell you what, the drivers get a lot more loose with their cars. They bang and they crash and they do all that, knowing that they can just hit reset and bring their car back up and go on with the race.
Right. So this, and we're a little over, but we'll finish up this conversation. Part of the thing that appealed to me about the flight sim was how the realism of it, and how and when I started getting back into it, I was like, I wonder how serious people are taking, and people are very serious about the hobby. They're very serious about like wearing flight suits and building indoor. I can't say flight deck. That's really for cargo. Cockpits. They're very serious about building like real, no kidding cockpits. And, to varying degrees, people have their flight sim setups. I mean, I have my own. I was allowed to get a new joystick, kind of a expensive one. That's my anniversary present. So, everyone has a varying degree of this. So when I started getting back into it, I was like, wow, people are really, into this. So the one thing that fascinated me, though, is there are like 4 or 5 big tribes within this particular flight sim community. One's called Grim Reapers, one's called Growling Sidewinder, on and on and on. But part of this is it's very cinematic. You can do videos of it. You can a lot of on-screen recording. So just yesterday, you're talking about the realism stuff like that. Just yesterday, I watched a not all of it, but there was a 5-hour mission that was they did live, but it was recorded for YouTube, and everything is. I mean, to an extent, it's pretty real. Like they have to take off, go up, hit the tanker, and then go to a waiting point. Make their strike, go hit another tanker, see if they get called in to make another strike, and then they either go home or whatever. They're paired up like these
talking to AWACS and things like that.
They talk to AWACS. They talk to they launch off carriers. They're pairing off with squadrons of F-16s. Like one of the big moments yesterday was, this was a time on target mission. So they're having to fly and speed up and slow down based on the time on target. So they're going up to meet the tanker, and the guy is ecstatic. And this is a seasoned guy. He's in one of the 5 big tribes. Seasoned guy who's like, oh, holy crap, we hit the tanker right on time because it was right there where they thought it would be near the arc. So it's an amazing sort of experience that you get with iRacing or these kinds of things. And I don't think a lot of people understand the realism that these simulations have come to because of the processing power, because of the graphics capability, because of the tools that you can plug into these things and do them. I mean, just even the VR stuff that people wear. A lot of the guys who play the flight sim have the what are they called? Oculus Rifts and the other VR goggles. And, again, a huge, huge immersion. They don't work as well. It doesn't flow as well. Like a big monitor is still the way to go, I think. But yeah, I could talk about that all day. It's amazing stuff, and the fact that you noticed it, that you saw the iRacing to me, that's a big, big deal.
Well, you know how I am about flight sims. So one of these days I'll have a computer other than a laptop and have that kind of processing.
Yeah.
And I had one of the early ones back in when was I in Turkey? 2001.
Well, what Wilbur and Orville Wright gave you, what Wilbur and Orville Wright gave you doesn't count.
Oh, it was an F-16 and a MiG-29. Thank you.
That's a pretty good sim. A lot of people refer to that sim a lot, actually. So,
yeah, it goes way back. But something like you have is that's my dream.
It's pretty incredible, and it's still. I mean, I have a wicked good computer, and it still puts a tax on that at some of the settings. So, all right, I think we are about done for the show. It's a pretty good show.
We had a lot of things to talk about. When are we doing it again?
I got a little distracted in the middle, so I apologize to everybody for that, but some stuff came in that I had to take care of. So it sounds like I'm babbling, like blip, 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 blip. But it'll be fun to listen to in the end. But there's some good stuff here. Again, if you want to listen to us, you can find us on iTunes, Spreaker, Google Play, Spotify, the Smithsonian Museum, the Louvre, the Eiffel Tower, and elsewhere. We're pretty easy to find. We do appreciate if you'd subscribe. We do appreciate if you would leave a review. That helps the podcast get a little bit more distribution. Thanks for listening. Any last words, Mr. Powell?
Go back to the earlier part of the show for that. No, it's been fun, and we'll try to do it again this week, right?
One more. We'll do one more on Friday, and then we'll go back to we'll just stick to a regular Tuesday and Thursday so people can anchor their lives around that. Thank you for listening. Hi, Darren. We'll talk to you all soon. Bye.
Bye.